Today we are talking about running for fat loss. It's a hot topic. A lot of people love to do it. But the big mistake that people make is that they don't train to maintain muscle mass at the same time, which is why people bounce back to where they were or even worse than when they started their fat loss journey.
What's up, everybody? I'm here with Rad Baumeister. We got Phil White on the stream again and Richie behind the camera. I am Yanni Baumeister. Together we unite and become Unity Gym and the Unify Movement System. If you want to know how we turn driven people into athletes,
like Power Rangers or something.
That's what I was thinking.
You can download our blueprints from the website or in the description of these replays. Big shout out to everyone listening on the podcast. Big shout out to everyone watching on YouTube. But most importantly, welcome to everyone watching the live stream on the UMS Movement Mastermind Facebook group. If you haven't joined yet, get yourself over there. Good morning, Lee Clements. All right.
Good morning, Lee. And if the question of the day, if anybody wants to see us unite and our powers become one, let us know. And we'll...
Real question of the day is, have you ever done a weight loss program? It doesn't have to be specific to running, but have you ever done a diet, a weight loss program, and found that you gained the weight back within the next 3 years? Very common problem. We want to know if you guys have experienced it yourselves.
I'm guessing 99% of people that have tried to lose weight would be able to say yes, if they're honest. Look, it's a good topic. Hey, this is something that at Unity Gym we're not a fat loss gym anymore. We're a performance gym, but we used to be a fat loss gym, and we did actually. Yeah, we were when we started. We were marketing for fat loss, weren't we?
Yeah, 100%.
And
most gyms do.
Yeah, and Yanni and I.
Most gyms do.
Yeah, we did. We did what most gyms do, and we looked at what the biggest part of the market was, and that's what we went for. But then we decided that we were in this for the long haul, and we wanted to do what we believed in more, which is why we shifted to being.
It's funny to say that we're not a weight loss gym, but we pride ourselves on introducing calisthenics training, which is body weight training, which is it requires a very lean body composition. So one of the goals that we have with our tribe is that they have to become a very healthy, lean body composition. They have to, we call it optimizing body composition, because you have to be efficient. You have to be an efficient mover, strength to body weight. Otherwise, none of the calisthenic stuff is ever going to come to fruition. So, yeah.
Well, what I was trying to say there to pre-frame this is that even though we're not a weight loss gym, Yanni and myself and even Richard, we have done many fat loss seminars with some of the authorities in the industry in Australia, people that are considered world authorities on metabolic research. So we've got a pretty good understanding of what you need to do in order to not just lose fat but to keep it off, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And we really thought about this topic because Phil was away yesterday, and we thought, what can we do that Phil would want to be here more than anything? And we decided running.
You bastards. I was at home and I was like, I checked the stream. I was like, what? They're talking about running? This is the ultimate betrayal.
Every day feels like, can we talk about running this week?
Running or cycling or something. Yeah. And we had great comments yesterday. Great banter in the comments. We had a couple of people posting about how they're cycling now, and I was just sitting here going, "Oh God, Phil's going to really missing this."
Well, why don't we let Phil have a bit of airtime for a minute? Phil, you know what the topic of the day is and the big mistake. Do you want to give us your thoughts or your input on this?
Yeah, I really like running. My background's ultimate frisbee for 11 years, which is basically just like doing sprints back and forth on a 100 meter by 40 meter grass pitch. So I spent a lot of my time running in my life, and it's been such an evolution from, I guess, how I used to train for running, which was like go out and run a 5K 4 days a week as hard as you can, and then injure yourself like a few months later, and then sort of come back a few months later and then try again, to then doing a sports science degree and learning all this stuff. And strength conditioning evolved a bit more in ultimate frisbee as well, so we're like, oh, maybe you should combine it with strength training. Who knew?
Who knew?
And yeah, it's just been such a different approach now, and I've had a decent amount of time off running because I just got totally surfing and beach volleyball obsessed, but it's something that I've just started picking up again now a bit more regularly, and I love it. But it's like one of those, I don't know, it's running's like my friend that sometimes I spend time with and I absolutely love them, and sometimes I spend time with them and I absolutely hate them, because you just like, some days it just works and some days it doesn't. And what that comes down to, I think, is when you've had a bunch of time off, if you don't treat that friend with respect, if you don't like gradually reintroduce yourself to running and you don't do it in a smart way, like if you just get really excited and, you know, just go for it, it's going to punish you. So yeah, I think running has potential to be just like one of the best feelings in life. Like some of the best feelings in life I've had is just when running is working and you just feel like you're flying and you feel like, you know, you just kind of, you go to this like different zone. I don't know what it is. Like I've not experienced it in any other sport, but like, and I'm always kind of after that, and then most of the time I don't achieve it.
Well,
that's come down to not setting out like a
I mentioned that yesterday, and you know, there's a couple of reasons why we like to encourage running, which I did talk about yesterday, which I know you would have loved to engage in, which is the impact concept. A little bit of impact sort of stimulus is very important for the development of connective tissues, bones, joints, ligaments, tendons, things like that throughout the body. The other thing is that running seems to be, and you can't quote me on this because it's been a long time since I've had these discussions, but I did used to hang out with someone who was a very passionate runner, and that is now going by the name Dr. Tony Battagli, but it's Tony Battagli, and he is a triathlete as well. And I do believe we had a conversation where we looked at some research where running seems to be the physical activity that it stimulates the most endorphins out of any other physical activity. There's something about it that just makes you feel good. They talk about the runner's high, you know, and I have definitely experienced that. It just makes you feel good. I sprinted about a kilometre and a bit down the road to grab a t-shirt for my fiance because she forgot it and needed to go to work. And that little run down there and back at full tilt made me feel amazing. You know, it only took 10 minutes, but
as much as I rag on running all the time whenever we talk about it, I do agree. It's what people call the zone, right? When you get in the zone. And for me, my experience with running is it takes about 10 minutes to, like this is just a steady state run. It takes about 10 minutes to get into that zone. And for that 10 minutes, I'm hating life. I'm like, I'm thinking about every step and I'm thinking about how much further I've got to go because we've planned a 40-minute run or whatever and we're only 5 minutes into it. But you get to this point, for me, it's usually around that 10-minute mark where you get in that zone and all of a sudden, I stop thinking about it, and when you come to awareness that you haven't been thinking about it for a while, you become quite aware that you're in quite a blissful state, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, I find kind of like your breath lines up with your steps and you kind of just you feel like you're just this like oxygen burning machine.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I mean, on a physiological level, how much of that, Phil, do you think is that, I mean, I remember learning this back in one of the many seminars that we've done over the years, but apparently when you're at rest, like where we are right now, apparently about 8 to 10% of our body's blood supply is dedicated for brain function, and then the majority of the rest of it is dedicated for metabolic functions in the organs. There's very little, in the scheme of things, there's very little in our extremities. It's just enough to keep us going. But when you start working out and you get your heart rate elevates, apparently that amount of blood goes down to about 2% for brain function, which is why, sometimes you can be in the middle of a hard workout and someone can say to you, hey man, when's your birthday? And you go, what? And they go, when's your birthday? And you, May. And like it takes you a couple of seconds to answer the most simple question, you know.
It depends on the level or intensity of exercise because there's other research that shows that going for a walk stimulates blood flow to the brain. But the
high intensity. Something where your body goes, okay, shit, I need to be pumping blood into the muscles and everything. So should we get on to the topic, the key discussion points for the day? So
this is important, and I think there's possibly a good reason to reverse engineer the bullet points that I've given here, which is, I think one of the things that's super important for people if they are going to start a running program or any weight loss program for that matter, then they should get a baseline assessment done immediately at the start. And it's very funny because the psychology around this, you tend to not want to. It's almost like the amount of people that come to Unity Gym, and we always like to start people's journey off with a DEXA scan, so we know one of our goals is to maximize the muscle efficiency, body weight efficiency. And so we like to know what the muscle mass percentage versus the fat mass percentages and how those percentages are changing over time. And that's a baseline assessment that we do outside of our strength assessments. And we use DEXA scan, which is a dual energy X-ray absorptiometry. That's what DEXA stands for. And it basically is the easiest, most accurate way of assessing body composition without plunking yourself in water or using very, very expensive equipment that's usually reserved for universities and that we just don't have access to. And the good thing about this is that it shows a 99.9% accurate measure of bone mineral density, fat mass, and muscle mass. And then from there, we can track those tissues.
And it's better than those bioimpedance scales.
Much better,
in a big way. So if you're using scales like
the Tanita.
They're fine to get, like, they can give you some good information if you always use the same one and you can track things over time, but it's not going to give you really a true example of what's actually going on.
We suggest if anyone...
when I got my first DEXA scan at the info, because I didn't know what it was, and Yanni said, we're going to get our body fat percentage tested. And I said, where are we doing that? And he goes, we're going to go to this place in the city, I want to see what they're like. And then the data that they gave, I was looking at it going, what?
Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's, like 99% accurate.
Yeah, and the gold standard, which you kind of mentioned with the plonking yourself in water, is this idea, is like underwater weighing, which is pretty much only used in like scientific sort of research.
Settings,
it's like, it's insanely...
No one can access it unless you're an elite level athlete.
But it's like that you said to the plonking yourself in water. So that's, for those playing at home, that's what the...
That's literally, they measure it on water displacement.
Yeah.
So I believe this is the first step for anyone who says, okay, I want to lose some weight. Because here's the thing. The amount of people I know who have lost a lot of weight and then gained it all back and some, because the body does not discriminate. The body will tend to, if you don't stimulate it correctly and you go into a massive calorie deficit, which is what most people do when they want to lose weight. They try to do it as quickly as humanly possible. So they go into food calorie deficit and then add onto that something like running, which is insanely good at burning calories. It's one of the best ways to burn calories. And then you go into a huge caloric deficit and the body won't discriminate. It will go, okay, I need to get rid of some of the tissue that's requiring all of this energy. And it will usually get rid of, depending on genetics does play a role, but depending on genetics, usually it will get rid of fat mass and muscle mass at the same rate. And that's a big problem. That's a big problem because it's your muscle mass that helps to sort of govern your metabolism. By that I mean how much energy your body consumes throughout the day. Muscle mass is a living tissue, just like organs, and it is very, very caloric dependent. It requires energy to survive. And if you go into caloric deficit, the first thing your body wants to do is go, okay, I need to be able to sustain this caloric deficit, so I want to get more efficient. And by efficient, it will get rid of muscle tissue very quickly.
And it also looks like your body also finds fuel sources. If you take away the enough sort of food as a fuel source, it'll start looking in different places, and depending on how adapted you are for certain energy types. So if you're very much a carby sort of run on carbs sort of person, if all you do is run on carbs and then you now take away a lot of that food input, your body is going to look for carbs elsewhere. If you're fat adapted, then you basically are better at muscle sparing and going for fat instead. But to find carbs, when there are no carbs, your body does a thing called gluconeogenesis, which means gluco meaning sugar, and neogenesis basically means like making new stuff.
Yep.
So what it can do is break. So it can break down other structures and tissues and types of fuel and turn that into glucose. And so protein is how it does this, and basically it can start taking like amino acid and protein from your muscles and turn it into glucose. So
which in layman's terms,
you're eating your own
You're
muscles to
literally
fuel
eating
yourself.
your own muscles, and it's that really surprised me when I learnt that concept. This idea that if you know, I mean, how ripped off is that? You know, like
just
people.
before we go further, because I want to really make a point of this. Something that Phil said there. Sorry to interrupt you. Something that Phil said there. Everyone really needs to understand, because what they refer to this as metabolic flexibility, whether you're well geared to metabolize fat mass as energy or well geared to metabolize glucose as energy, which is carbohydrate, sugar. Now, unfortunately, if we take a metadata study of 10,000 people, probably 9,000 of those people will not be very good at metabolizing fat. It's not very common anymore because of the modern diet. We tend to have a diet more rich in carbohydrates, and most of us have been raised on that, cornflakes and Wheat Bix and things like that. So it's a very good thing to make yourself more metabolically flexible. And I've got friends that do this and exercise it, but they go into ketosis 2 or 3 times a week. They push the boundaries of that, which is very difficult to do. You have to be practicing strict keto diets and bouncing back and forth between carbohydrate and fat. And so I'm going to go so far as to say that the majority of people that we're talking to or that are watching this, unless you're training specifically for metabolic flexibility, that means that you're doing days of the week where you don't consume carbohydrate or sugar at all. You're just consuming fat and protein, and majority fat, because protein will convert to through the pathway that Phil just described. If you're eating a lot of protein, lots of meat, lots of protein shakes, it'll be converting to glycogen pretty quickly. Then you're going to be very efficient at metabolizing muscle mass when you start to run.
Yeah, but just on like I guess a slight sort of grey area between, you know, what you just talked about there with going, you either have to go extreme ketosis to teach like your body that metabolic flexibility. Like I have done keto back a few years ago, and I did that very strictly for 3 months and lost a whole bunch of weight and felt pretty good in it, but socially and lifestyle wise it was just kind of too much. Yeah. But now like with like I eat, well, no, I eat anything now basically, but I
seafood
too much
diet.
of it, yeah, seriously. But with my exercise, like I'm cycling to work every day, but I do that completely fasted, and I've done like I generally aim for some like fasted steady state exercise first thing in the morning most mornings, and it was really quite telling when I went cycling with my mate. Alex, who's like very into his powerlifting and he's done like he's doing quite a bit of CrossFit, so he's like decently sort of fit, very strong. And he came up to Northern Beaches where I live, and we went for a cycle together. And I was like, "Oh, you're a strong guy, you'll be all right." And like we'd got about 50 Ks, and like I had not had breakfast, and he'd eaten like 4 muesli bars and like 5 pieces of fruit, and was just like, what is going on here? Like how, like I'm getting like he's just so sugar adapted that he could not handle like even going, you know, a few Ks without it. But because I'm quite used to doing like, you know, gentle steady state, or not so gentle, but I've adapted myself to that over time. Like I haven't been an extreme keto diet for a long time, but I've train that metabolic flexibility through like a gradual exposure of time. So,
and that's one of the reasons why I love fasting, time restricted eating and intermittent fasting, because that's what it does. It helps to train more metabolic flexibility, and that's one of the key benefits. It's not, I would never say that it's the best way to lose weight, because the best way to lose weight is very much subjective based on what you're going to survive on. But for me and for Rad, it works really well, and I love the fact that it makes you more metabolically flexible and helps to untether you from food. But it's something that I'm so glad you brought up, because it's a big problem. It's a big problem when people try and lose weight, and if they're not really aware of it, then they can be doing a bit of harm. You know, you can really mess with your muscle. And the worst thing about it is that muscle mass is really hard to get back, as opposed to fat mass. Yeah, fat mass will come back real quick, you know, especially if you flog yourself and lose it really quickly. It usually comes back quicker, because it's kind of like the body's mechanism of survival to go, Jesus, you know, this is a bit like we're at risk here, you know. Remember, our bodies are designed to keep us alive whether we can get food easily or not. You know, we're very, very efficient animals at maintaining energy and sparing energy out over time, just in case we need to go a few days without food, you know. We're amazingly, we're much more efficient at that than like lions, you know, who really have to eat every day, otherwise they're in serious trouble, you know.
So if we just make sure that we get through all of this, because we are coming towards the end of the show, you know, to answer the question and the topic of the day, how do you lose fat and keep it off permanently and avoid the dreaded rebound effect? You have to work. You don't just focus on losing fat. You also focus on maintaining muscle or even building muscle if you can. And the way you do that is with resistance training.
I think you will only maintain it. But let me be frank. Your focus is to get muscle.
To build muscle.
Build muscle, because when you're on a calorie deficit, it's almost, depending on your genetics, it's almost impossible to gain muscle mass. You can do it. There have been studies that have shown you can do it, but geez, you got to work hard.
Yeah.
And the types of resistance training that we're talking about on this show today are not going to be sufficient to gain muscle when you're in a big calorie deficit.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, part of losing fat is being in calorie deficit. It's the law of thermodynamics you can't beat it. It's physics. That's one of the 4 laws of physics. You have to displace energy to burn fat. And so you're going to be in calorie deficit. And if you're in a big calorie deficit and you're not trying to gain muscle mass, meaning prioritizing dietary protein after bouts of exercise, meaning stimulating muscle tissue through resistance training 2 to 3 days a week, then you're going to lose muscle tissue at the same time. And
we should talk about that calorie deficit, because this is a really big part about this. This is where a lot of people go really wrong, is that they create too big a calorie deficit. And if you create too big a calorie deficit, it doesn't matter what you do, it's going to be impossible for you to maintain muscle mass, because the deficit is just too big and your body needs energy from somewhere. It's not getting it from food. So unless it's changed in the last couple of years, the recent research that we learned from is that the sweet spot for the calorie deficit for fat loss is about 500 calories a day. It depends on how big you are or how small you are. And you want to get half of that from food and half of it from exercise, which means that if your resting metabolic rate, for me, from a DEXA scan, is about 2,200 calories in a day, I would want to consume about 2,000 calories a day and burn about 200 to 300 calories a day in exercise.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people get it wrong. You hear these, I go, oh my God, no, when people tell me, oh yeah, I'm eating about 1,000 calories a day. And to look at them, they're a 70 or 80 kilogram person. Like, even if you weren't exercising, you would need to eat 1,800 or 2,000 calories just to sustain yourself.
Yeah.
So you're putting your body into that starvation state. The body has to get the energy from somewhere, so it starts getting it from the fat stores and then also from the muscle mass.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a really important thing to clarify.
We've got a very, very close to home first-hand experience of what it's like to fad and crash diet. Our mother, God love her, is an absolute fanatic around fad diets and crash diets. She's done it so many times.
We love you, Mum, if you're listening.
Yeah, if you're listening, Mum, we love you. But this is
always got
as an example, you know, she'll do something for 30 days or a month or 2 months or whatever, and whenever she shows me, it's always way too little calories, and none of them have ever been successful. If anything, you know, it comes out less successful than when she started, you know. And
it takes like an emotional kind of thing to go through something like that, and then if it didn't even have long lasting effects, and that can be demoralizing, and that's the same with running as well. Like, people kind of see running as this, like, oh, I just need to flog myself running and that will kind of be the answer. But unless you can build running to a place where, as I said before, like with the sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad, like you've got to build up to the level where you can make it an enjoyable part of your lifestyle to keep it maintainable. Because if you're just going to use it as a like quick fix, beat yourself up, then, as we've talked about so much before with what are the most common causes of injury, it's these big fluctuations in what you're doing. So ideally you want to kind of build up, like we'll go through this later in the week, but like how to start a running program, but like start smaller than you think and then build it to a level where it's maintainable, not killing you week by week.
Yep.
And adding variety in there is really important. And one thing that I just love about running, and I'm very fortunate living where I live right on North Head at Manly, which is a beautiful
beach suburb.
Beach suburb, which then has like a national park that runs around some cliffs. And so that's one of the things I love about running, is it can unlock sort of experiencing your environment in a way that you otherwise kind of don't get around to. So if you can kind of tie in all these aspects of like, slowly building it up so it's manageable, but also finding like the joy in getting to know your space. Like
Yeah.
I think that it just becomes such a powerful and wonderful thing to do. But
Yeah.
For sure.
100%.
It is one of the best things about running. You get to go, I'm going to go down past this part. And for me, in the very rare occasions that I do run, I do go places where I wouldn't normally go. So it's good.
Yeah.
Looking at how little time we've got left on the show, we haven't even touched on how to create a balanced training split to lose fat and maintain your muscle. Maybe we should do tomorrow's show on that, because I feel like, especially with Phil, I think that is a show in itself.
Well, tomorrow is about start. Okay, I'll just frame it up for you guys so you know what you're in for this week. Tomorrow we're going to talk about beginner programming for running. We're going to talk about the critical preparation and conditioning phase and how to prepare your body so that you avoid injuries. Thursday we're going to go a bit deeper into more advanced training techniques for those people who are ready for intervals, sprints, hill
And that's where we'll
climbs,
talk about
stair
that, I think, in
climbs, and
programming.
things like that. And we'll really talk about the best program split on Thursday. And then Friday we're going to bring this in for a landing, talking about how to avoid the dreaded runner's knee, which is a very common injury problem, pain in the patella tendon or in and around the usually somewhere around the kneecap.
Front of your knee-ish.
Funny knee.
Front of your knee.
Front of your knee-ish. Yeah, that's right. And it's very, very common. And, what Clay has said here in the comments, he said, no, he hasn't, referring to the question of the day, but my goal is to build muscle first. And, this is one of the key things, I think, for most of you who are just starting out. You may be deciding, okay, it's spring, just like me. Wow, I want to get out and lose a little bit of weight, and I'm going to add some running to my training program. The key word there is add some running to my training program. I'm doing all the other things that are really, really important to maintain my muscle tissue, to make sure that my glutes, my ankles, and my knees are really nice and strong, to make sure that I'm nice and upright and my running form is really good. I know all of these things already, and now my thing is just managing the amount of volume, managing load, not getting too excited like Phil referred to before, and making sure that I start small, much smaller than I'm used to or that my ego would like me to do. And for me, that literally is 5 to 10 minutes of running, and I'm slowly going to build that up to 15 minutes, and then slowly build that up to half an hour, and then slowly build that up to maybe an hour, and only do it every other day or every 3 days as opposed to every day, which is what I want, when my brain tells me I want to do, to give myself sufficient recovery between bouts or of stimulus of running, and that's super important, and we're going to talk about that more tomorrow.
Scott is saying, my partner really struggles to lose weight by only reducing calories by reducing by 500 kg. Do you intend to say by reducing by 500 kilojoules? Because if you are, that's actually only about 110 calories. Scott, can you clarify if that's what you mean to say? Because 500 kilojoules is not enough of a calorie reduction to start with. The only way she can lose weight is by doing the 5-2 diet. Yeah, look, that diet has had a lot of success for a lot of people around the world.
The problem with the 5-2 diet, Scott, is that it doesn't tend to encourage resistance training, and that is a key critical factor in a good weight loss program, because remember, you're trying to stimulate metabolic function, and the way you do that is to stimulate muscle tissue. So she needs to be focusing on getting stronger. And with that, her metabolism's going to sort of work really function properly and sort of healthy. Because if you're just trying to lose weight without that metabolism, I don't think it works, mate. I don't think it's a good idea.
Well, I don't think it's that you don't think it works. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no long-term study that's ever shown that any diet has ever maintained fat loss in anyone for more than 3 years without it bouncing back when it hasn't been combined with exercise as well.
No, there's not many. Yeah, there's not many.
I remember when we learned it from Tony, he was saying that there's none. And then when you say that no longer than 3 years, like 90% of people, it's less than 12 months. Like it's a tiny percentage of people that make it to the 3 year mark before they start bouncing back. So you have to do it with exercise. You have to, and that's what we're going to be talking about for the rest of this week. And we're going to be talking about how we incorporate running.
Cool.
into that. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. It's got a lot of viewers today. It looks like this is a hot topic, so make sure you tune
Told
in.
you people would like running.
This week. Yeah.
Maybe it's fat loss.
I like it. It's really good. Yeah, look, get your questions in, guys, because we're going to go deeper on this week. Anyone who has any questions about running programming, injury management, pain they're experiencing when they run,
Yeah,
all
Clay
of that
just
stuff.
said he ran a gravel path 2 years ago. It seriously messed the knees up. Now he's too paranoid to run. So yeah, we'll definitely be giving you.
Let's talk about that. And hey, maybe because we missed Physio Monday this week, maybe we can do a Physio Monday specific to running next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I could
Oh.
see if I could get a special guest.
Oh.
I'll look into
Oh,
it.
stop
Yeah,
it.
stop
Special guests.
Look, yeah.
We'll see.
All right.
No promises.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We will. Oh, you know what? I got one more question of the day for you. Tell us in the UMS
Power
Movement
Rangers again.
Mastermind
Yeah.
what YouTube videos you want us to make. What do you want to see us make on YouTube? Because I've got the time to start making some more YouTube videos, and I'm about to ask these guys what should we make. But I'd rather ask you. So give me some input on what YouTube videos, tutorials you'd like
I'd love to
us
see
make.
Rad do a running video.
Yes. Vote.
All right, guys.
See you
later,
We'll see you
everyone.
tomorrow for programming.
Bye.
Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, it's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's the
far.
consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.